What do Falcons do? Rise up. Welcome to Rise Up Reactions, the show where we talk all things Falcons, NFL, Georgia, sports, and in general the sports news of the day. I'm your host, Dr. Lee Denning, the Golden Hard Dog. All right, guys, so today we've had a few more moves in free agency and a few moves that have been linked to the Falcons going forward. The most exciting of which is that Calais Campbell, an older defensive interior lineman, but somebody who has proven year in and year out that he still has juice in the tank, is looking at coming as a free agent to meet with Atlanta after having an all-pro career in Arizona, an amazing transition to Jacksonville, and then finally a pretty solid renaissance to his late career in Baltimore, maybe coming to bring his talents to Atlanta. This is a guy who has not finished below a PFF grade of 71 since 2011. Now, is that the end-all be-all? No, he definitely hit his stride, being the best that he's ever been while he was with the Jacksonville Jaguars in the late 20-teens. He hit a PFF grade above 82 in 2014, 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19. And then he's been above above a 75 the last 2 years in Baltimore, being a pretty solid run defender. His tackling has suffered as he's gotten a little bit older, but his pass rush has still been very, very good. And in general, he is a solid, big guy up the middle, 6'8", 307 pounds. I don't know what kind of contract he would be looking at this point. I don't have that information, what he just paid or what he was just paid by the Baltimore Ravens in front of me. But he's 37 years old. This would likely be a 1 to 2 year deal. Probably the first year would have fully guaranteed money, and after that it would just really depend. But again, you're talking about a guy who is currently 36 and a half years old. He will be 37 by the time we get to the season. I think he would be a solid player for us. He was, drafted back in 2008, same time that Matt Ryan came onto the scene, if I remember correctly. So this is a guy that has the longevity of a quarterback who has been dominant at his position for a long time. Now, if he does sign with us, I think this does mean something in particular for the Falcons in terms of the draft. Jalen Carter has been falling down draft boards. I love Jalen Carter as a Georgia guy. I think he is an excellent player. I think he's had a bad pro day. I think he got involved in a really bad situation. A situation where it sounds like he has had a troubled past. He had three, if I heard the reports right, he's had at least three high-speed tickets in the past, and he's not all that old. And then he had the most recent incident, which unfortunately led to the death of a scout, a UGA scout, and one of his fellow teammates. He was not driving the car that crashed, but it does appear as though he is alleged to have been racing. He basically pled no contest to the charges and cannot be prosecuted going forward for anything related to that incident. It is filed as a misdemeanor, and he will have to basically be on probation for a year, pay a fine, and do some community service. The NFL does look down on anything that happens around this time, getting close to the draft, and unfortunately that's going to cause him to drop down draft boards. And the way the Falcons have behaved in the offseason so far, it looks like we may not be looking to take a defensive interior in the draft. Having solidified the position with Grady Jarrett last year, re-signing him, getting David Onyemata to a 3-year deal, now possibly getting Calais Campbell for a couple of years, having Taquan Graham already on the roster. It just seems like that's probably not going to be something that we do. I don't know if we would go for 5 or more than 5 active roster guys for the defensive interior. It just really depends on the scheming. I think he's a transcendent talent overall. There have been a lot of people who have been calling him a bum. I don't know how you can justify that viewpoint. Watching him play at Georgia for the last 3 years, I just don't know. I don't know how you get to that point. Say what you will about the character issues off the field with being kind of dumb and young, but he's still a great player, and I don't know how you get away from the fact that he is an amazing talent. I still look for him to possibly go to one of the teams that have a pick ahead of us. Not everybody is going to take a quarterback, and I still think he's better than most of the other guys there. But if Calais Campbell comes to our team, I think that is almost the nail in the coffin for Jalen Carter coming to the Falcons if he did happen to fall to us. Anyways, moving on, that's still a speculative move. Moves that we actually have made. We've made 3 and one of them I've kind of talked about a little bit, but I'm going to talk about the 2 that I haven't so far. One is Mike Hughes signing on with Atlanta. Now, Mike Hughes is a guy who's taken at the tail end of the first round back in 2018. He was drafted by the Minnesota Vikings. Was not particularly good at corner there. He had a very good year at Kansas City in 2021. And then he went to Detroit last year and just didn't play all that great. He has turned into a very productive rush defense corner, so it makes me think he would be a pretty solid nickel scheme for a corner. Maybe someone in the box there, but I don't know that he would be a phenomenal corner 2, outside corner. God forbid we need him to play that role should Casey Hayward or A.J. Terrell go down. Very similar to another guy I'm going to talk about in a minute. Just his coverage has not been there. It was great in 2021, but it's been pedestrian every other year with a PFF grade in coverage since he's been in the league of 64.6, 59.6, 56.7. Again, 2021, 78.8, and then last year, 51.4. So he has been, I would say, below average for coverage at the corner position for somebody that was drafted so highly. Former UCF Knight, I believe he might have been on the UCF Knights the year that they went undefeated and are the national champions of whatever that year. Only for them to, I think, get beat by a top 10 team the next year, if I remember, like in the regular season. But anyway, I remember them playing at some point. They played an Auburn team that didn't have anything to play for in the Sugar Bowl, and they just decided that they could call themselves national champions after that. Sorry, no offense to UCF UCF fans, UCF players. No, just absolutely not. It's probably a shame that y'all didn't make it into the dance for the Final Four. That probably you do have something to say, but you were not the best team in college football. You didn't pass the eye test that way. So anyways, moving on to Mike Hughes. He's on a 1-year deal. He's a guy that I think would be a good run defender. I'm not sure exactly how he's going to fit into Ryan Nielsen's scheme because we haven't seen Ryan Nielsen in Atlanta coaching yet. So we'll see what happens with him, but I think it's a fairly solid depth signing. If nothing else, we've got a guy that could be, at least some level special teamer, add some depth, is a rotational piece, and I think that's a solid move for us overall. Now, this past week, we finally did address a position of need for the Falcons by signing the breakout from the Raiders this past year in Mack Hollins, wide receiver. He basically played wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 at different times last year for the Raiders. He was taken in the 4th round back in 2017 by the Eagles. Basically been a journeyman of the league, did not play a lot of snaps at all for basically the first 3 years in the league. He was with Philadelphia, then he found his way on to the Miami Dolphins, was with them for 2.5 seasons, finally came back and ended up getting signed on for a 1-year deal by the Las Vegas Raiders last year. And with the Raiders, he kind of broke out. He's a big guy. He is not a slot receiver. He's 6'4", 221 pounds. When he's been measured, he has 4.53 speed. So a relatively fast guy, tall guy, big receiver, and he should serve as a solid wide receiver 2 for the team, assuming that we don't draft somebody that we view as better than him. And that's kind of where I think we're going to do in the draft. The way mock drafts have been going right now, it has more or less been this. The Falcons have their pick of corner, Jalen Carter, or like Luke Van Ness or Tyree Wilson, someone talented on defense, very talented, highly regarded, like a top 5 defensive prospect, is available at pick 8 because it's anticipated that 3 to 4 teams are going to take a quarterback ahead of us. So we still have some of the top defensive talent available in the draft at that point. That said, edge rush, we have not signed on yet. We have not looked at anybody. I think we're looking to potentially take, I take that back. Lorenzo Carter, and we also have AK-47 with Arlo Bacady. we just are building up the defensive interior, and what you're going to do that way is you're going to force the center and the guard to double team one of those two guys. I mean, I don't know if you can imagine this, but if Calais Campbell and Grady Jarrett, and heck, even if we run a 5-man line and have David Onyemata in there, somebody's going to get double teamed, which means that one of our edge rushers is going to be free. And that's where I think we're trying to build. We're not necessarily looking to go make the splashy pick at edge rusher, but we're looking to build up the defensive interior that is then going to force the quarterback out of the pocket where the edge rusher can get to him easier, or it's going to collapse the pocket so quickly that the quarterback doesn't have a chance to do anything with the ball. I think that's a solid move overall for the Falcons. But again, edge is still something we need to be drafting. There are a lot of solid guys that are currently mocking in the second round, in the early part. If we wait till the third round, we're not going to have an edge rusher. If we wait past the third round to get another corner, we're not going to have somebody that we could plug and play day one. It's going to be a developmental piece. With that said, I think the Falcons are looking at some combination of corner, wide receiver, and edge rusher for the first 3 rounds. Makes the most sense. As you get further into the draft, it's certainly going to be best available as you get there. We need to draft some needs early on. Best available need early on. We still could use a center, which if the right one is available, maybe Van Patten from UGA, if he's available in the 3rd round or 2nd round, if we do some weird trade to get there, I might be okay with that. But we're still, Drew Dahlman and Matt Hennessy, neither one have been great centers for us these last couple of years. Certainly not, oh gosh, I can't think of his name right now. The guy from Cleveland that we had for years, Alex Mack. He certainly anchored our offensive line for several seasons, including our Super Bowl run, and we haven't had that since he left our team. But again, I don't know. I like the moves that the Falcons are making. The one move that I think is questionable, but is more of a depth piece, is the guy that I think I've already talked a little bit about, and that's Cornell Armstrong. He was a guy who was forced to step in last year at Week 7 to kind of fill in the starting role beside A.J. Terrell to fill in for a hurt Casey Hayward. Did not perform particularly well. He didn't have a lot of starts in the middle of the season. Picked it up again weeks 15, 16, 17, and 18. Week 18 was probably his best week of the season, where he got a fair bit of experience, but he was also going up mostly against the second-string quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What I remember from him is getting beat, I can't remember if it was DJ Moore or Terrence Marshall, but I remember the Thursday night Carolina game, and I remember the receiver being basically 1 foot away from the end zone and him being 10 yards away from where he was supposed to be covering, and just didn't pass the eye test as far as I'm concerned. Certainly a guy who is a solid depth piece, special teamer, but if he is called to play corner 2, I don't think that he is going to be the guy that we need him to be. But anyways, guys, so that's my thoughts. I'm hoping Calais Campbell signs with us. That would be an amazing pickup for the Falcons. Mike Hughes, solid pick. Mack Hollins, solid pick to line up beside our current wide receiver with Drake London and with Kyle Pitts. And then again, we also have Jonnu Smith, who's going to be lining up in 2 tight end sets and could be just as solid of a receiving tight end if he has a resurgence with the coach that made him really good to start with. And finally, Cornell Armstrong, not my favorite pick in the world, but just we got to have some depth. So I look for, after the draft, the Falcons to probably start taking a ton of depth position, just, small vet minimum deals to guys, prove it in training camp type deals, and we'll see where we go from there. But that's all I got for you today. I'm really trying to hit 500 subscribers. My cat Susie would love for me to hit 500 subscribers by the time we get to the end of the 2023 season. I will have a live stream going with the Falcons draft. It's going to be my first attempt at doing a live stream, so I don't know how that's going to go. I'm hoping it's successful. I might end up with 0 people in it, but I'm still going to have fun and at least go through the Falcons pick. So it might be an early night. Might decide to stay on and go through the rest of the draft. It will be if I do the rest of the draft, I do get up pretty early to go do my hospital rounds, so it will be an early morning for me, which may deter me from doing anything else. But yeah, I also have something that's kind of in the works right now. There is a current NFL veteran, a guy who's made the Pro Bowl in the past, who I am in contact with, who I am trying to set up a good time for us to do. Just a quick interview, kind of talk about his life as a professional, what it's like to kind of, more or less, I would like to talk about, kind of living vicariously through him as an NFL player. But certainly a guy that many Falcons fans would know. I'm not going to spoil it here until I get more details. I kind of want to do it right. Obviously, I don't have the editing ability as a lot of YouTubers, but probably it'll be a recorded Zoom call for a few minutes. And anyways, I will announce that later on, but I do have something in the works right now. We just have to kind of coordinate a time on that. But anyways, I'm certainly grateful to this individual, and I appreciate his time in regards to this. But as always, guys, that's all I got for you. Thank you for watching, liking, sharing, subscribing, and as always, rise up.